and let me first introduce myself. I'm Özge Kemahlıoğlu. I'm a political science scholar, and I've been here at Sabancı since 2009, so for a long time too. And I received my PhD in 2006 from Columbia University, so I've been teaching political science for quite a long time now. And I do comparative politics. I'm going to talk about what it means in a bit. I mostly work on elections, political parties, how incumbents benefit from their control over the government, politically and electorally. And so these are issues that I'm going to talk about a little bit during this presentation. So here I have a couple of photographs from some issues that we deal with. So in the first one, we have the head of the World Health Organization. We saw him a lot in the last couple of years, and maybe we should be thankful for it, not that much anymore. Of course, it's an international organization that was quite on the scene for a long time. And of course, we've discussed how he to some extent failed in the response to the pandemic, and how it aided the countries during the pandemic. And there are many different issues related to how countries work together through such an international organization. So these are kind of issues that we deal with in political science and international relations. In the other picture to the right, there is, of course, the ballot box. So a very well-known, of course, issue that we deal a lot in political science: elections, how people vote, how elections are decided, what political parties do. So many number of different questions related to the elections. On the left, in the bottom, there is this photograph from Venezuela, where on the person who is protesting, it says "No hay comida," which means we have no food. So it's a protest that had a lot of participants. Like a couple of years ago, the protester is, of course, facing with the military officers, if I'm not mistaken, police or military, I'm not sure now, but I think it's the military. Of course, there's this reaction from the society against the economic problems that they face, against the growing authoritarianism, but it is repressed, and there has been an expectation for a democratic transition for a while now, but it hasn't been materializing. So another, of course, important question is, why do people protest? One is the question that we deal with. Another question is, how does the state respond to it? So whether they repress or not. And then, of course, related to these questions, how regime transition happens, what affects regime transition. So why some people have democracies, why some countries have democracies, why some countries have authoritarian regimes. So questions related to those. And then on the right-hand side at the bottom, we have the protest by the Catalans in Spain, and in this particular one, asking for independence or demanding independence. But of course, they've been demanding other political rights as well, and independence was one outcome that they demanded at some point, and it varied across time. So the question is, why do some groups, minority groups, sometimes prefer to be independent from a country that they have been part of for a while? How does the parent country respond, or the central government of the country respond to that? How do the citizens of the country who are not from that minority respond to such a demand? And an international organization like the EU in this case is related to such questions. So these are all types of questions that we deal with. And at the core of it is the question of power. So the focus of political science is the goal of political science is to understand power relations that can happen at the individual level, at group level, at the country level. So we have a number of questions, many questions that we deal with, and we try to respond to them. So I'm not going to go over these. I talked a little bit about these when I was talking about the photographs. So you can take a look and read them. Of course, there are many different questions. These are some things that I thought of, from this, of course, related to the pandemic. We thought a lot about, how countries respond to policies, how people respond to policies taken by governments during a pandemic. For example, whether trust in general, political trust affects how they respond to it, whether they accept it, whether they go along with the implementation of these. So a lot of questions, of course, during the pandemic came up related to political science. So of course, I thought of them and put it there. But questions like, again, regime change, international dynamics of a conflict. Of course, Middle East has seen a lot of conflict over many decades. Recently, too, it was on the agenda. And then a question like how democracies should be organized. It's a little bit different from the rest of the questions that we deal with, because it talks about these normative issues of how things should happen. So how democracies, political systems should be organized. And there's a subfield of political science that deals with it. So before going into the structure of the program in our university, I wanted to give a little bit of information about these subdisciplines. So what kind of analytical divisions we have in the field. When the first kind of subfield is called comparative politics, and it basically looks at domestic politics. So I'm basically a comparative politics scholar looking at domestic politics. And why do we call it comparative politics? Because we want to understand domestic politics from a comparative perspective, because it gives us the chance to empirically analyze our expectations about how things work by collecting data on a different number of cases. So we want to either look at how countries change across the years and compare them, how different we want to sometimes compare countries and understand how it makes you use that compares to understand the question about domestic politics better. We compare subnational politics, subnational issues within a country. So we compare different empirical cases to understand our questions better. International politics relations looks at relations among countries, between countries, so war, conflict across countries, trade, economic relations across countries, how they get together and organize an international organization and participate in an international organization like World Health Organization. So those questions that look at relations between countries. And then we have the third field, political theory, that I mentioned just a minute ago, which is looking at, or we call it sometimes political philosophy as well, which is looking at how things should be organized rather than understanding how things work. Of course, we have to know how things work in order to make a sound argument about how things should be organized, but they're concerned with how things should be organized. So again, how the political system should be organized, what the rights individuals should have in a country, how democracy should be organized. These are the kind of questions, normative type of questions that they ask. And then we have the subfield research methodologies, that is trying to advance methodological methodologies that are used in political science. And these methodologies have changed a lot over the years. Now we use experiments a lot. We use whereas, for example, a couple of decades ago, there weren't that many experiments. We still have detailed analysis, historical analysis of cases. So we use political science is interesting in the sense of using very different methodologies to understand similar questions. The same question can be studied from many different methodological perspectives. And then we have area studies or country studies that focus on one country. For example, in our case, we have Turkish politics field, and it's a field that, of course, Sabancı University is quite strong in. And then we look at it, at least at Sabancı University, from a comparative perspective. So we want to understand Turkish politics with a comparison with other countries, comparing, trying to understand the general issue, like, for example, transition between regimes or political transitions. We're looking at the case of Turkey, but trying to understand it in a comparison with other cases. Historically or at the contemporary, looking at contemporary politics and public administration. So looking at how public administration works, for example, local politics, or to understand how policies work, their effects on the outcomes that we care about. So basically, we build our program based on these subfields, because we want to give you a background on different subfields of political science. So we have can't seem to show you the required courses, but can give you some idea of what they are. We have 8 required courses, so basically they cover the subfields that I've been talking about. So introduction to comparative politics, introduction to international relations. We have Turkish politics, political theory 1 and 2, and required course on like maybe you can help me, a required course on internship. Okay, and so these are here I have it here. So a requirement of internship, and then you have to choose. Did I miss anything? Required course comparative politics, so research methods. What we said 1 and 2. Comparative politics, international relations, research methods 1 and 2, political theory 1 and 2, political theory, so internship. And then we have 8 elective courses from 2 pools. One of the pools is more about the international relations. So looking at courses looking at inter-country relationships like human rights, peace. The other pool looking at domestic politics, comparative politics, for example, local politics, and a course on local politics is under that pool. So you would need to choose 8 core electives from these 2 pools. And then we have a long list of, not that long, but quite a good selection of area electives. And then of course, free electives that you can choose from. So after, and then again, as in the economics program, you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you design your course program, except from these 8 required courses and core electives from these 2 pools that would give you some good background on comparative politics and international relations. You're able to choose from a good selection of area electives and free electives to prepare yourself again for an academic future and future in international organizations, a future in civil society organizations, a future in policy-related organizations. So it would be possible to the program has flexibility to prepare yourself for these types of different careers. So what what are the possible career options from any political science program and from Sabancı University? So of course, a lot of our students, because they're interested in social and political issues, want to continue with working on these kind of issues. So their preference is to work more on research and policy issues. So research and policy institutions and activities like think tanks, research centers such as European Union Secretariat, UNDP. We have a number of people who've got jobs at UNDP, World Bank, İKV. These are the kind of places that a lot of our alumni have taken jobs. These are just preferred by our students. And of course, Sabancı has a unique opportunity there because we have the Istanbul Policy Center that gives the experience of doing this during the undergraduate program. So it's an independent but affiliated institution, and our faculty members are members of this institution. The director is a faculty member here, and so they do a lot of faculty members there do a lot of research projects that have policy interest. So either making policy, preparing policy suggestions, or analyzing the outcome of policies, working with policy institutions, some research funded by these policy institutions, and our students, either as part of the internship program or as research assistants, have worked in these projects over the years, not recent only, actually since I came here. I worked for these projects and I work with students on these projects. So it's a very nice place where you can get experience in terms of preparing yourself for it, and start as a place where you can build your network as well. Because you can start while you work in these projects, you get to know people working in these institutions, and it's a nice opportunity to start also with internships in other institutions as well. So if you're not interested in this, another well-known kind of career opportunity is diplomacy. A lot of people from other universities do choose international relations to pursue a career in diplomacy. It's not the most desired path for our students, but we have some very good successful diplomats working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from our program, and I'll show you a picture of one of them in a minute. Just very recently, alumni of us decided not to be an MA student in our program. We lost him, unfortunately, as a student in our MA program, but he chose to start a career in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I think for him it was a good outcome, even though we liked him as a possible MA student. So hopefully, I believe that he's going to pursue a successful career there. And then other public bureaucracy works like state or local government officials to some extent, not too much again in our among our alumni. Academia, very successful students who pursued careers in academia. Some of them are now currently here as faculty members at Sabancı, some in other international universities. One came to Sabancı, actually two came to Sabancı and then left for other universities, one to, for example, Bocconi University. So we have very good alumni who've been very successful in academia. Corporate employment, some people, again, it's not probably the first choice of the students who choose our major, but people then decide, change their mind and go in there. And human resources and journalism. Journalism less, as we would expect from the current context. So again, I have here some examples of alumni who chose different paths, so in multinational corporations, in consultancy, media, and our alumni that I mentioned who's been very successful in the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So if you go to the web page of the program, you can find more detailed information.